Lubbock people, you are not good at buying tickets early. So please buy your tickets early.
Gosh, just calling out the whole city, huh?
I know, but it's a thing. It's a thing, y'all. We gotta be better. Hello. Welcome to the first episode of the Reinvent podcast. Who are you?
I'm Ben. Who are you?
I'm Abby.
Oh, nice.
Well, but Ben, like, what do you do?
That sounds like a loaded question. I'll be completely honest.
Okay. Well, in terms of Reinvent.
Sorry. I'm Ben. I'm the creative / artistic director for Reinvent Productions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm the executive director of Reinvent Productions. I still get to do fun stuff, but my name is the one that gets signed on everything. For those of you who are not our close family and friends, we are a married couple living in West Texas. Ben just looked down to realize he has a wedding ring on. We are based in West Texas. We did meet up in Ye Olde, Missouri at Missouri Western State University. But yeah, we are currently based in West Texas, Lubbock, and we officially started Reinvent Productions this past year. August 12th, 2025 was our official Founders Day. But this has been a writing universe and D&D universe that's been going on for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it dates back to, the first D&D campaign was 2016 was when it started.
2016.
In August of 2016. Or September. I don't know which one.
We're coming up on 10 years of D&D, but we have found artifacts of certain characters and stories and situations dating back to stuff that you wrote in middle school.
Yes, I think.
Middle, high, 8th, 9th grade, something like that. It's, that's pretty fun. That Ben won't let me share with other people.
Nope, sure won't.
Enough with the killing. Someday you'll understand that reference. And Ben is very upset that I've made that reference. So, you know what? Let's say whenever we get to 1,000 followers on this podcast, when we get to 1,000 followers on this podcast, you will explain the enough with the killing reference.
Will I?
Yes. Benchmark. 1,000 followers. Make it happen, y'all. But the podcast, what are we doing with this?
So this podcast is going to be used as a heavily inspired by the Letters Page podcast, which is done by Greater Than Games, the creators behind the Sentinels of the Multiverse card game and the Sentinel Comics RPG tabletop role-playing game.
We love them. Love them so much.
Yeah, they're great. And hugely inspired by their podcast, which is a big lore podcast on their fictional universe for the Sentinel Comics universe.
Their multiverse too.
That too. Yeah, it explains the lore behind all the characters and locations and everything in the game, the card game. And then at a certain point, they explained all the lore that there was and said, okay, now let's just start writing things. And so their podcast turned into one where it's now we will just write this issue of this fictional comic book company that we have. And so that carried on like that for 300 episodes, probably more than that. But their podcast has been on hiatus for a hot minute and it makes me very sad.
It is very sad.
Sad boy.
It is.
It's the only podcast that I've ever liked.
Yeah. Oh man. And it's a great podcast. And we hope that someday it'll come back. That's a fun little butterfly effect there. Adam, the artist for those, is the older brother of one of my childhood best friends, Faye. And I think it was 2019, the year that Faye sent me that big old box of games that included Sentinels, because I had a previous boyfriend who took my copy of it and never gave it back.
What a dump.
And then, but that became our hyperfixation game for a long time. So fun little full circle moment. So thanks, Faye, for sending us those Sentinels games and the expansions, because a lot of what we do now is kind of inspired by that.
Woo.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about where our big audacious goal for 2026.
Audacious? What do you? Is that like the audacity?
Audacity. Ambitious goal.
Ambitious. There we go.
Excuse me. I think it's a little audacious to be like you're gonna do 2 podcasts a week when you teach high school and whatever the heck Abby does.
Crazy.
But we're gonna do it.
Yep. We'll find time. Time will happen.
Time isn't real.
It's a flat circle, don't you know? But yeah, so what we'll do is that most of our episodes will be about the lore of created elements within the Reinvent universe. And any of those episodes, it'll cover things like characters and groups and locations and objects, and, even down to individual like stories and interactions and stuff like that.
Because like, you know what, sometimes when my mom sees our stuff and I tell her stories about things, she's like, this is really great. I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, okay. The idea with these is that like it might be quote unquote spoilery to listen to certain episodes for stage shows or audio dramas, but it'll kind of be like everybody knows Spider-Man. People know Spider-Man. His Uncle Ben dies. Crazy.
What?
Yes, Uncle Ben dies.
Oh, dang it.
I know. Ben, the biggest Spider-Man nerd ever. Didn't know that Uncle Ben died.
Man.
But we also know like Superman from Kansas. We know the background knowledge of like all these people. Batman, dead parents.
What?
By knowing more about the characters, we hope that you'll have a little bit more of an idea of what's going on stage or in the audio dramas, what have you. And then you can be like, oh, I know this thing and all that jazz. We will not put anything horrifically spoilery out there for a stage show or whatever.
Yeah, there's still going to be some details about things that are going to be like very closely under wraps, even though like we know the answers to them. It'll be like, well, you'll just have to wait and see for when that thing pays off.
Yeah. And then in future episodes, we will be including a third party member. Today it's just me and Ben because the lore drop that we're doing today is kind of just how we got here. But a la the anime trifecta of having a trio of plucky characters, we will ourselves become an anime trifecta, depending on who we have on. So some upcoming episodes will have some of our actors who are in our first stage production of the year, Ordinary Heroes, talking about their character on stage, but then we'll also give you the lore background of what they look like within the Reinvent universe outside of Ordinary Heroes.
Yeah.
So what is Reinvent?
The Reinvent universe is a shared storytelling universe in which magic and science are both present in equal measure, and that they both have equal influence on the world, and it is heavily inspired by both comic books and Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. And what I thought was always really cool about Reinvent is that it's very inclusive for anybody who wants to play. So like if you have played D&D for a really long time and like you've only really played in the high fantasy setting, there's a place for characters like that. There's also a place for if you just want to play a human cowboy, which is one of the most famous characters within the Reinvent canon in Universe 17 is a human cowboy. Shout out to Ray Clark at some point. We'll get him on here to talk about Iron Sights.
We love Iron Sights.
It's really cool that there's somewhere for every kind of character to be. So I got into Reinvent in 2019 with the second full campaign that you played. This was like right after we started dating. It was the summer after we started dating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We played that campaign. We played it through COVID. And I mean, I fell in love with it. I always thought it was really cool. I do remember like whenever we were first early dating, you had shown me like a dossier thing about Andrew Blood. And I was like, this is really neat. But as we were playing, I really got emotionally attached to my characters. Like my player character, I was like, I want her to be a pirate, but also a princess. And it took me a second to kind of like figure her out. But Aurora became such a fun storytelling device for me, and got really emotionally attached to the NPCs that surrounded Aurora, so much so that there was a day that we played D&D for 13 hours, and towards the end of that 13 hours, one of Aurora's parental figures got killed by saving iron sights. And I took the day off of work the next day because I was so sad.
In mourning.
But so I got highly invested in it, and I started writing some scripts within the world, not really doing anything other than just being creative. And I drew lots of what I called fan art at the time of my characters. And but it wasn't until we moved down to Texas that we got the opportunity to put Reinvent on stage. Because I was in residency with a local theater, and towards the end of that residency, they were like, "Hey, you can put on a show if you want." And I had just come off of a devising project with our friend Justin for his master's thesis that was like a life-altering process for me. Really got me into devised theater, and I was realizing like, hey, we do devised theater all the time when it comes to D&D. So I asked you if you were okay with us putting Reinvent on stage, of like trying, because my original intention was like, oh, let's do like a 30-minute, it feels like an episode of an anime or like a TV show or whatever, and call it good. Well, that turned into a full-length show with an intermission. It was with no budget. We were able to make a show called What If, about a girl named Percy. She's an elf living in Industrial City who was being a little vigilante with her natural magical telekinetic powers, who then ends up getting the scientific superpower of being able to turn back time from one of the power rings, and all that stuff. We'll talk about all these elements in future episodes. But we were able to do that on stage, and we put the character Andrew Blood that I had mentioned, that's either the first or second character made in Reinvent.
Not even close.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that he was one of the earliest ones that you made.
He is one of the earliest ones, but not first or second.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the early boys.
Yeah.
He
definitely somewhere in like first 10.
Oh, okay.
But in the back half of that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, Ben's favorite character,
yeah.
and some of our other friends' favorite character, even though he is a bad person for the majority of his life. But Ben played Andrew, and that was really cool because we had only dealt with Andrew at the D&D table before. I thought was really cool is that we had talked about Andrew having a redemption arc towards the end of his life. And by the end of putting together that show, we had realized like, oh, this is where...
This is the start of his redemption arc in this show. And that is to go backwards a little bit, that the campaign that Abby was talking about, we refer to that as the Dynamite campaign. That is the second campaign. And the first campaign is the Cataclysm campaign. And so Andrew was a huge character in the Cataclysm campaign and a minor guest star in some of the Dynamite campaign.
Yeah, he would show up and our friend John would get very angry about it. But man, Andrew's he's a charming devil guy. So when he's at the table and he shows up, Ben is very good at making people very flustered at the table. Like you go in with a plan and you're like, I'm gonna have like this great speech and whatever, and then he starts talking and you're like, shoot, I don't know what to do.
Oh man.
But what if we made that in 6 weeks? I think we wrote it in 3.
Yeah.
Because and you can tell if you look at the script, you can tell.
There's some typos.
We're fixing it right now. So after that, it was one of those things where we only had 2 shows, and it was kind of a bummer because so many people who saw that show were like, "We've never seen stuff like this before, and we want." Like you should do more. And like I had people being like, oh, are there going to be more stories about Percy? Are there going to be they just wanted to know more. And that was like, okay, well, maybe we can try this again. And I remember we were striking the set, and I remember seeing our friends Taylor and I almost said Jim, Taylor and Ryan in the green room, and was it you?
It
or
was me who pointed this out
Ben
because we
pointed
were
out
talking about what show, what we might want to do next. I don't remember this one. Who said that we should explore other characters that we have focus it around? Because that's the thing with What If, was that aside from the setting and Andrew, everything was original, like created for that show. Percy and everyone else was like original characters made for What If, but. And so we were like, what if we make the next show around characters that we have already established? And so I looked at our friends, Ryan and Taylor, and said, oh, those two look just like Aaron and Jim, who are two NPCs from the Dynamite campaign.
Yes. And those are two characters that are part of the Lady Legacy, which is the pirate ship that my character, Aurora, was the captain of. And they were originally NPCs that were just made for a one-off, like mini campaign that we did with our friend Ray to get Iron Sights, like kind of to give him some background relationships with people. We like went back in time, did a little thing for him to introduce him to the party. And originally these NPCs were just like Ben threw them together, but I got attached. We all got attached.
They were originally just names in a stat block.
Yeah. But we ended up making, like, down the line, it was like, oh, we made Aaron Aurora's uncle, and we made Jim that he was the royal chef in Aurora's home country of Rondor when she was a baby. We ran with that idea, and we'll talk more about this in our retrospective of Lady Legacy Tale of the Tide, but long story short, we spent over 6 months developing this show, Lady Legacy Tale of the Tide. And we realized that we did not just catch lightning in a bottle once, we did it twice. And that's where we were like, okay, I think we can move forward with this being a production company. So we are officially a nonprofit, and we have the goal of doing 5 productions this year. Our first one being Ordinary Heroes, which is coming up very soon. As of recording this, we are 19 days away from that opening.
Oh boy.
And that is a play that Ben wrote. We are doing a show in May that is currently untitled. Has the working title of Spy Show right now. That is our devised piece that we played a tabletop game for. We played Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Sentinel Comics role-playing game.
Yes, sorry, I get their games mixed up. We used that game to play out their story. That show is currently being written by our wonderful Julia and James. And then in June, late June, Cataclysm Season 1 is going to be coming out, which is an adaptation of the Cataclysm campaign that was played in 2016, that the pilot's already out for. You should go listen to it. It's very, very cool. We got some wonderful voice actors for that. And we have wonderful voice acting cast for Season 1 that has been released, and it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And then in early September, we'll be doing Spotlight Volume 1, which is a short play festival. That'll be a yearly occurrence that gives people the opportunity to write. And then also, like, people who want to take a stab at directing, this is like a great gateway project. So we love a good short play festival.
Yeah.
So that'll be in September. And then in our closer for this year will be a original work that is an adaptation of William Shakespeare's Macbeth called Something Wicked, that is currently being written by Ben and James. So we've got these really awesome projects coming up for 2026. And I was looking back at a picture from What If, and we had 13 people between the cast, crew, and our dear friends Jazwa and Alex, who drove down from Kansas City to do the lighting design. And Alex was our lighting designer, Jazwa was our random citizen and shadow wrangler backstage.
Yeah, the role's name was actually Random Guy.
And we had 13 for that. And then looking at the fact that our cast and crew list for Ordinary Heroes is 29 people. The fact that we've more than doubled.
Yeah. I mean, even from What If to Lady Legacy, we added like 10 extra people onto that. So yeah.
It's been really cool to just see the growth, especially within our community. We have a lot of exciting things coming up in 2026. So that's a great segue into Ordinary Heroes the reinvent story.
Yes.
I will say, as the director of that, I am ashamed that I did not realize that the subtitle of this was the reinvent story until we did our first official read through with our cast. I was like, oh, it's the reinvent story.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a reference. Everything else that we've had, What If and Lady Legacy, Tale of the Tide, and any previous things that I had written always had tacked on a reinvent story. So yeah, this was a change up in that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really is a good portion of this is the reinvent story.
Yeah,
because
it totally
it's
is
about you. So, I mean, let's just talk about it. Like, what inspired you to write this story?
So with Ordinary Heroes, my big inspiration, there's a handful of things. Back in undergrad, during Short and Sweet, I had written a play for that festival one year called An Ordinary Citizen. And that was my first foray into putting superhero style things on stage for a play. It was a 10-minute play about a guy who was just in the park and then found himself in the middle of a conflict between a hero and a villain. And their names were literally Hero and Fiend. And I don't even remember the main guy's name, but it was a riff on Peter Parker. But that play was one that we did there, and it was directed by our friend Nathan. And it was, I think people liked it a lot.
Oh, people loved it. And you know what? When it got produced at Texas Tech,
so that's what I was going to say. Was that year Texas Tech had Frontier Fest, which is similarly a like New Works play festival. That so I touched up a little bit and resubmitted it for Frontier Fest to do here. And have it redone and everything. I was like, I don't know, let me just throw this out there. And it got picked up, and it was a little bit rocky. It was actually the last 10-minute that was assigned a director, because they had people drop directing, and then one of the actors got like the flu the day they were performing. But anyway, it was performed, and it was one that, this was one that, like, the reason I say I don't know, I think people liked it with the Missouri Western was people didn't like come up to me to tell me how much they liked it. But when it happened at Texas Tech, it was happening a notable amount. Was people were like, oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it was also the year before the Frontier Fest, the year before that, I sent it in. It was like, oh, because there was just like a stage reading day of like, let's just read these all together. And like, it was like more like a talk back of like, oh, let's read a bunch of 10-minute plays and talk about it with the audience and everything. Resubmitting it for Frontier Fest then really struck with me. It was like, oh, people like this sort of tone of this little like silliness that's behind it, but also this idea of like a love letter to comic books and everything. And also it was a feel good script.
Well, and it was hopeful.
Yeah.
I think it was a breath of fresh air. And I think with theater and film and just all forms of entertainment that you and I both view it as escape, but also as a way to like feel things. Like we're recording this today that we have watched the finale of My Hero Academia. Ben's gonna start crying, but that made us feel a lot of things, even though it was a fictional thing, and but it's helped us process a lot of things. And I think that a lot of good theater makes you process the world around you in a good way, in a healthy way. And I think that I think that Ordinary Heroes will do that for people. Yeah.
And so that is to say, I bring up An Ordinary Citizen as like, that's sort of what laid the groundwork a little. There's a lot of things that laid the groundwork. But after that, there was also, I think it was earlier that year, I had, for a directing class for our professor, Jesse, we had this project where we had to like research a director from a certain list of things. And so that was around the time that I had learned about 2.5D theater.
Ah, yes.
Which is a huge genre in its own like industry of theater in Japan, where the whole goal is to adapt manga, anime, and video games into stage plays, and mostly musicals at that as well.
And they are so cool.
They're incredible. I researched the director of the My Hero Academia stage plays, and I say plays because there are 4 of them right now, and fell in love with the whole industry, and it became one of my like specific research topics from there on out. And so that sort of also watching those, especially, also laid an early seed of like, oh, wait, superheroes on stage, but like actual like superhero stuff, because that's the thing with an ordinary citizen was the powers on stage where Hero could make evil people not see her anymore.
Yes.
And that is not turning invisible. It is just that evil people lose the ability to see her. And Fiend didn't have powers. Hero's weakness was if you put a hat on her, she was frozen. At the end of the play, there's a whole thing that they're like, all right, good job, partner. And it's a little bit up in the air in terms of if they actually had superpowers or if they staged the whole thing to convince this guy to go get a job interview.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the feel good nature. And so I wanted then to be like, oh no, let me actually put superheroes in a play on stage. And so it was near the end of that semester that I started writing the first early draft scenes of Ordinary Heroes. And it was still like a working title at the time. I didn't really have a set in stone one, or at least at the time I just thought of Ordinary Heroes as a working title. Mm-hmm. And then it became the actual title. Yeah. But and so that at the time I had also been doing a lot of research on the different ages and eras of comic books, like Bronze, Silver, Golden Age, all that stuff. And so it was originally also a little bit of like an educational play of like, here's the difference between all these things, and then showing comic books in the middle. And that writing it that way sort of led me to a dead end of like, ooh, I don't know how far I can actually take this. So I let it sit on the shelf for like months. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that first stab at it included like a bunch of the characters that are still in the full rendition and everything. And so I didn't really pick it up again until What If happened that summer. So I went back to the drawing board and like started almost from scratch, because the original version of Ordinary Heroes had like, here's a comic book scene that plays out and everything. And then here's the characters like talk with each other about it. They say, how'd that go? In this weird like void of like, oh, okay, here's all this different stuff that we're going on. And then being like, here's all these like tropes and stuff that you might have just seen, like sort of direct address to the audience. And so I'd written a few scenes like that and wasn't a big fan of where it was going. And so I took basically all of those characters talking to each other bits out and then sort of like looked at the individual like comic book scenes again, and then decided to layer on this idea of, okay, here's the sort of like Toy Story style inspiration of, oh no, the characters are aware that they are being written still. That idea was something I really liked, but let's actually see the writer of this. And so I think I sat there like toiling over what to name this writer for a long time before I was finally like, you know what? Let me just name them Wendell, because that is a tie-in to my own like writing pseudonym. And I was like, I'll probably change this at some point, but I'm just going to throw this on there because it's easy to think of right now. I don't need to waste any more time worrying about a name. And then eventually, from there and those two things sort of combined, turned into this idea of following this writer as he grows up and seeing how his writing evolves and what his writing is used for in his life, and also seeing how the characters evolve and change and grow in reaction to that. And around that point was when I decided, let me actually make this like pseudo autobiographical now. That I'm like, oh no, they're following this life. Well, there's one life that I know better than anything else, and that's my own.
Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting life.
I like to think so. Actually, I don't like to think so, but it is the reality of it, is that it is an interesting one.
The interesting, background for you. You are the child of two military veterans.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom retired just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
From Army after over 30 years of service. Your dad was also in the Army, retired and worked as a civilian, which meant a lot of moves for you. Mm-hmm. Lived in Germany twice, all across the United States. And now you're in West Texas.
Yeah. And so those were some of the early inspirations of it. And then I sort of ran into a roadblock again with Ordinary Heroes of like what to do with it in terms of like the scope of things. Cause I was like, I don't know how long I want this to be. I think it was sitting at like 40-ish pages at that point. And then it was another class I was taking in my last year at Texas Tech, which is our dramatic analysis, like the graduate level class. that was taught by our professor, Chris. And in that class, he had us read all sorts of things that really like fudge around with dramatic structure and like what you can do with theater. And something in that class clicked in my brain of like, oh, now I know how to actually proceed and how to like structure this play. And so it gave me the idea of like, okay, let me break the comic book structure up into Golden, Silver, and Bronze Age. And then let me break it up into acts from there, into a first, second, and third act. Because I realized it's like, okay, I could do this in like act 1, act 2, but I don't want to, because that's a recent-ish last like 20 years trend in theater that plays have gone to 2 acts instead of 3. But that's a soapbox for another time. But the thing is that those comic book ages don't line up with the acts that happen. And so I had this whole diagram drawn out of like, here's the comic book progression, here's the acts, and also here's where Wendell is age-wise. And so that is the actual closest thing to the act progression is middle, high school, and then college.
Within the acts, instead of them being called scenes, you have them being called issues.
Yes. Yeah. And so that was the other one, is I wanted to really play around with my final paper in that class was talking about meta theater, and like breaking it down and basically making my own definition for it, because I didn't like the current definition of meta theater. And so I was like, no. And so the idea of like meta theater is something that like ascends beyond what theater is, not just like talking to the audience or being plays about plays. It is something that in lieu of that, instead of acts and scenes, we have volumes and issues going from there and leading into the comic book stuff. And so that class on top of 2.5D theater and Ordinary Citizen are all the big leading inspirations for Ordinary Heroes, on top of various other anime and movies and everything else.
Does the fact that your scene directions have their own opinions, does that lean into the meta theater or your bit. Definition of meta theater?
Yeah, that's something that I started doing with What If. I think
drove me crazy, but now I do it myself.
Yeah,
so.
Because there's this idea of like a beat in a script of like that's supposed to be like a moment of like pause or whatever, or like a change. There's a lot of things that a beat could mean, right?
Pause,
or just writing pause, right? That was going back to that advanced screenwriting class in undergrad. That was something my professor Toby told us a lot. He said, don't overuse the words beat or pause, because then the director and the actors will do the same thing every time they see that. And so he told us, and is also, when you submit that to a studio and they read that and they see that over and over again, the readers will get bored a little bit. And so he just told us, mix it up, throw other words and things in there. That was sort of a little early on, so I would throw in beat, pause, ellipses, or whatever else it is. And so with What If, in lieu of just using beat, pause, ellipses, I threw in things like, wait a minute, hold on, what? Sort of like the script reacting to the story itself.
Yeah. And like things that a lot of times that we as audience members will either think, or I am a vocal audience member. I will have audible reactions to things happening on stage. Like I remember us seeing She Kills Monsters at KCCTF. And the big reveal at the end. I won't say what the big reveal for that one is, but there is a big reveal at the end of that play,
and the whole theater was silent.
And then there was one guy who said, "What the F?" and the entire shattered.
Yeah, I need to give the like representation, because this is a theater of like hundreds of people,
yes,
hundreds of college theater majors
and
watching this play, and professors and everything watching the show, and it's this huge like drop, and it's just like everyone's just sort of sitting there, and you just hear in the distance just what the fuck. and it was,
and the poor actors on stage, they did such a great job of like holding it together, but you could tell.
Gosh, it broke the tension because the entire audience erupted into laughter. And so the actors were just like, they were doing their best, but what that audience member was saying, what everybody was thinking. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm a big advocate for audience participation.
Oh, absolutely.
With stuff.
I want to hear them reacting to things.
Yeah, and appropriately.
Yes.
But I really, what's part of Ordinary Heroes for me as a director, because I am directing this piece and then I'm also performing in it as the character Sneak. we originally pitched this in our season because it's our first official show under the Reinvent banner. That we were like, okay, we're gonna do this as Readers Theater because there's characters that have fire powers and that have
one of the big characters who's one of the main villains. One of the main villain characters, I should say. His name is Booming Boxer, and his superpower is that when he throws a punch, his fist explodes. Like, not blows up, like it causes an explosion where his fist is.
A la Bakugo.
Yeah, and so it was one that I was like, when I was writing this, I was also like, I'm throwing away any concerns of how this is going to happen. Because that was another piece of advice from Toby, was like, don't worry about how it's going to happen or how you're going to make it happen, because that's going to limit you from what you're actually doing and it's going to lead you to a block. And so I adopted that mindset with the script as well. I'm like, I'm not concerning myself with how long it is, with how many actors we need, or what materials we need. And so let me just throw this out here and I'll worry about, who's going to make it happen when I need to worry about it. Well, and the time is now.
The time is now. And thankfully you married someone who thinks outside of the box.
But also to real quick throw this in there, for anyone who doesn't know the term, Readers Theater is basically a reference, or like stage readings and stuff, is to say that like instead of like a fully performed play where everyone is memorized and everything, it is happening at like music stands, and they're still being performed, but it is being read off of the script instead of like fully staged and everything.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, well, we'll do this as Readers Theater. And that is still kind of technically true as to what we are doing. There are music stands and people stand at them sometimes. But the idea with it is that I wanted there to be like a distinct difference between the real world and the comic book world. And so a good chunk of the stuff that is happening for the comic book characters themselves is happening behind music stands. And we do have an incredible PhD candidate, Rebecca, who is our stage directions for the show. She is reading a majority of the stage directions throughout the show, which helps us out with the superpowers. But as Wendell grows up and becomes a more mature writer and more skilled at the art that he's making, that's also going to reflect within the movement of the actors, and like maybe using the music stands less, or maybe not using your scripts at all. And that's something I'll keep close to my chest until people see it. Maybe in the retrospective, we'll talk more about that. But I think doing it as Readers Theater, because it was so engaging when we were sitting around the table for that first full read of the show, where we were able to gather enough people.
Yes.
We gathered 22 people.
Yeah, that
which
is
was
the minimum number of people needed for the script is 22.
And we gathered them. Just honestly a really surreal experience having everybody sitting around those tables at H2C2, just reading the story. And it was so cool, just hearing it. But I know that contemporary theater people want movement and stuff. I'm really excited for the work that we have done so far, and like what the work that is continuing to go on. And I think it's going to be a good handshake for people being like, this is who we are. Yeah. I'm really thankful for the group of people that we got together to put together this show. And it just makes me excited about moving forward.
Yeah.
So Reinvent is a multiverse. It is a universe of storytelling, a shared storytelling universe. But it is a multiverse. And again, most of the stuff that we have put on stage, or the little short films that we've made and audio dramas, have all been within Universe 17, which is the main one that like the campaigns have been played in, all that jazz. Where does Ordinary Heroes take place?
So Ordinary Heroes takes place in Universe 1. In terms of like the grand like multiversal structure of this one, this is, and fear not if you're someone who hates the idea of a multiverse after all these movies have gone into it and everything, I understand. But this is good. This is not a multiverse where things cross over. Like that is a very almost never happens occurrence. And when it does, it's a big deal, but it's not like a big, and anyway, the point is in the multiversal structure of Reinvent is like every universe is a pair of train tracks that run alongside each other. They're all parallel. And they are all parallel. They do not ever intersect. There is not like we branch off at this point. Like there is a point where the universe starts being different, but it's not because it branches off of one. It was always intended to be a different universe because of whatever is going on, whatever the change is going to be. But the thing is that there isn't like traveling between universes. You can only go from one to either universe that is directly next to yours. And so there is no one who has the ability to do that except some people in Dynamite, but we'll get there when we get there.
Long story short.
Yes.
We don't cross over. There's never going to be an event.
There's not a giant multiverse crossover thing that's ever going to happen. That is not in the cards.
But for example, there's a universe where everybody's character alignments are flipped.
Yeah.
So like Aurora, who is a lawful good character in Universe 17, is a chaotic evil character in the universe.
I don't know. One day down the line, when we have a lore drop episode about the multiverse, we'll talk about all that stuff. But that is, I just want to like ease anyone's like bristliness right now. Don't worry about it. We're not getting into it. Honestly, ever, because we don't want to. That's not the idea. That's not why it's a multiverse.
It gives us the multiverse. It gives us more opportunities to tell different stories.
Yeah.
That's the point of the Reinvent multiverse.
Yes. And so Ordinary Heroes is universe 1. And the thing that makes it unique is that the Reinvent stories are comic books written by Wendell. That is the special thing about this universe. But yeah, that is the answer to that question.
Yeah. I think it is cool that your writing pseudonym is
WTR Shaw.
Yes.
And the W in that stands for Wendell.
Yeah. So if you see any scripts that are written by WTR Shaw, they're written by Ben.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
What?
Well, I've gotten to the point where I've picked up my own pseudonym. So for like whenever I get the definitive edition of What If figured out, it will be written by Scarlett Shaw. And at some point we'll do a little lore drop of what the lore is with Wendell and Scarlett meeting and all that stuff. But they write comic books together. What are you hoping that audiences get out of seeing Ordinary Heroes?
Oh, man. The initial hope, and this is in the script, so the script is 160 pages long. One of those pages is just a letter from me to readers. That is basically the thing I write in there is that if anything, I just hope that the audience is able to connect with their inner child in whatever fashion that takes. It was one that's like, I do consider my own like childhood and growing up unique. Because it's like I wrote comic books for a little bit, but like I was super into like video games and superheroes in general. Everything was superheroes. I loved all of it. But I know that's not the case for everyone, right? But everyone does have something that they love as a kid, and that at some point they stopped loving as much, and at some point later on, hopefully they start loving as much as they used to, or even more so, right? And so I'm hoping that Ordinary Heroes can be a catalyst for a lot of people in that sense of returning to whatever it is that they really loved a lot, that they might have let go a little bit because maybe they were embarrassed about it, whatever it might be, but that it helps them connect with their actual true self in some way in that sort of capacity, right? Because a lot of the feedback I was getting early on, especially after those like big table reads, was that people like really connected with the more than anything else, like Wendell's growth and the fact that like his struggles growing up, and just being able to like feel seen in that way, which is one that was absolutely not intentional, but that's the secret to writing, everyone, is that you don't have to be intentional. Meaning will happen so long as you are like writing from a place of genuine storytelling. If you're just writing because you want to throw two characters together, okay, fine. But if you are writing for the right reasons, whatever those reasons are, meaning will happen. And if you're looking for that as well, you should be looking for meaning or have some sort of message that you want the audience to get. And so the message that I want the audience to get is that it's never too late to be a kid or to heal and grow.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, here, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What's been your you've been coming to our rehearsals, even though like you're not on the directing side. You're doing our sound design for this, and have been a great resource for me as a director to be like, hey, can you explain what the moving process looks like for an army family, or like other things, like basically a dramaturgical resource, or like for some of the superpowers, like being able to explain certain characters, stuff like that. What's been some of the highlights of sitting in rehearsals, of like sitting there and being like, this is good?
It's honestly, volume 3 has been the highlight for me. That was one that I knew what I wanted the vibes of it to be early on, but I didn't know what shape that would take. And there's a couple scenes in there that I was like, okay, I want this scene specifically to happen. But the ending of it was one that I wasn't really sure about how I wanted the whole thing to end. Up until I watched To Be Hero X. And if you've seen that, it's the first arc of that, the nice arc was the one that actually like really inspired the ending of Ordinary Heroes a lot. But actually seeing it in rehearsal, the entirety of volume 3, and I'm not saying specific details because it is very spoilery, and those are ones that have been like hugely inspiring to just see in rehearsal, but have also like, I've sort of separated the writer part of my brain from this process a lot, just so I don't get too attached to whatever's on the page. Because I know that happens with me all the time. And so I forced myself into that sound designer area in terms of how I think about the script. But then also my teacher brain popped out in the middle of rehearsal one day and said, ooh, I'm now seeing all of the underlying metaphors and symbolism that's going on here. And that was really special to actually like connect those dots myself. Because that means that other people can connect those dots.
I think that similar for me as a director, the ending of the show, the last 2 pages of the show. I remember the day that we were blocking that scene, I was up at your high school to see the kids perform during the afternoon.
And this is the high school that I teach at, not the one that I attend.
Oh, no. We did not go to Germany. No. We're not going to go to Ramstein.
Yeah.
No, I was up at Ben's school, and I was hearing Ben work with his kids and get their show set up. And I was sitting in his office, writing out blocking, getting prepared because I had like 30 pages I needed to block that night. And I was like sitting there just feeling good, being like, oh, this is going to be so great. And I was getting teary, like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good. And then when I got to rehearsal and I realized I had to verbalize the direction, I was big waterworks. But it was, I think that as a director that this is going to be one of my favorite stage pictures I've made so far out of I've been at this directing thing for almost 7 years now. So I've made a lot of pictures, and I love making the pictures. You'll hear me say in rehearsal a lot, being like, "Oh, this is gonna be a great production photo right here." But I think that comes from my background of being an artist. Like I painted and I drew a lot. I was an animation major before I realized I did not like animation. At least the 3D side of it, that broke me. I didn't want to do it anymore. But I still love drawing. And I think making the compositions and stuff and getting to do that with people, and especially with people I love, is really cool. So I appreciated the cast for dealing with my waterworks, and then you and I got to have like a good cry together.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, all right, this is good. This is what we need to be doing. And I think it's a really great representation of what we're hoping to do with this show. So very vague way of saying that, man, those last couple pages of the show, It's good stuff.
Oh yeah, no, that like the last page is also one that that's one that I knew was going to be in there, but I didn't know how much of an impact it would have until I had you and then our friend Ella read it, and then getting the responses of like, I was fine until that last page, and I was like, good, excellent.
And then I told you what I want you to do with the last page, and then you cried.
Yeah,
we cry a lot.
I cry so much. It's great.
The Smiths, we're good at crying.
Yeah,
we feel things.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in the Lubbock area, or anywhere near us, or if you're up in Kansas City, come visit us. You can get your tickets for Ordinary Heroes at www.h2c2.ludus.com.
That is Ludus.
Yes. Yes. Don't ask me to spell things out loud. I am not good at it.
Yeah, that's why I did it.
We are proud residents of Hollingsworth Hall Cultural Center. Heather Hollingsworth is a wonderful patron to us. She has provided a lot to help us get the company off the ground. And she and her brother at 5 Points Corporation are season sponsors for us. So we are so excited that like all of our productions are going to be held at this venue this year. So if you are in the area, grab your tickets. Lubbock people, you are not good at buying tickets early. So please buy your tickets early.
Gosh, just calling out the whole city, huh?
I know, but it's a thing. It's a thing, y'all. We gotta be better. I'm bad at it too. I'm bad at pre-buying tickets. But you gotta buy your tickets at the door. Because I will tell you, our last 2 performances of Lady Legacy Tale of the Tide, we had to add chairs. We were sold out. We are only running for 1 weekend. It's January 15th through the 18th. So this is one, I'll say this with all of our shows, but truly, I want everybody to see this show. Not just because my sweet husband wrote it, and not just because people I love are in the show, but it is truly heartwarming, and I think it's a great way to start off the 2026 year.
Yeah. Remember, being fantastic starts with being a fan. Reinvent Productions is proudly sponsored by 5 Points Corporation Lubbock and Savannah Rashida Photography, as well as our other wonderful community patrons. Our home base in Lubbock is Hollingsworth Hall Cultural Center at 4228 Boston Avenue. For more information on how to support our 501c3 organization, you can check out our website at www.reinvent-productions.com. To directly support our upcoming audio drama, you can become a Lore Drop sponsor. For just $10, you can sponsor an episode of this podcast. All donations will go towards support for our upcoming production of Children of Destiny Cataclysm Season 1, which will begin releasing episodes June 22nd, 2026. Funds will go towards paying our wonderful voice actors and creative staff for their fantastic talent and time. We have over 30 artists globally working on this production, and we can't wait for you to hear it this summer. You can donate at givebutter.com/Lore Drop sponsor. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at reinvent.productions, as well as on Facebook and Twitch, where we stream gaming and a look behind the scenes on how we create our new works. Be sure to follow us to stay in the loop about upcoming productions, auditions, and more. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Lore Drop.
6, 7. Is that recorded?
Yeah.